Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here in the last moment. Thanks to Dasho Kamaura and the efforts of Chimila and Senamla, I was able to fill in this session to share a little bit my experience on cremation ground practice in the Vajrayana. It may not be so well known, but it is important to point out that Buddha, before his enlightenment, he certainly also was frequenting and doing what we call smashana sadhana, cremation ground practice. We have sources in the suttas, in Pali text from the 5th and 6th century and so on, in the Satipatthana Sutra, in the Visuddhimagga, and also in Shaiva sources. So there it is, particularly in the Majjhima Nikaya, in the Mahasihanada Sutta, it is said that Buddha, before his enlightenment, he was sleeping in the charnel grounds with a pile of human bones under his head, going about intentionally dirty or ingesting his own waste materials. So of course later on, with the unconventional Siddha tradition in medieval Bengal, about 8th to 12th century, meditation on cremation grounds became a very distinctive feature of Buddhist Tantric practice, as you are well aware, And these meditative practices, which we can also be described as Augura practices. Augura is considered to be one of the 8 Tantric classes in the Brahmanical field. So this meditative practice ascribed to the Buddha in the Pali canon, and this special smashana sadhana of Buddhist Tantric and Nath siddhas, as we were very well known in the early medieval India, continued also in the Tibetan tradition, as well as in India. So in Tibet, I have written extensively about that in other works. So in Tibet, due to the scarcity of wood and the hard and frozen soil, the usual form of funeral is what we call the sky burial and exposure of the dead. Now I differentiate between sky burial and exposure of the dead, meaning sky burial is a more sort of a proper setup where the body is dismembered in a delicate way somehow, and then fed to the birds, to the vultures. While the exposure of the dead is more in remote areas, where they just expose it on a higher hill or something, or on a mountain slope, and just cut a little bit, and then the beasts and dogs and chakras, whatever, come and finish it off. So there's a slight difference. So to be eaten, of course, by animals and birds. So apart from these ecological advantages from the Buddhist point of view, it increases, of course, the awareness of impermanence, cuts off ego clinging and attachment to the physical body, and is effective for accumulating merit even after death, and promotes bodhicitta, in short, right? And it is also a skillful means of Tantric tradition. So the sites where corpses are dismembered are consecrated as divine mandalas, where the consciousness of the deceased has a further opportunity for liberation. So a full understanding of these Tibetan funeral traditions, of course, requires familiarity, with the famous Bardo Dödel, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, with the practice of transference of consciousness, power, and the practice of tud, this cutting off the ego clinging, which was founded, as we see here, by the South Indian yogi Paramabuddha, or Tapampa Sanje, as he is known in Tibet, and his disciple, the yogini Machik Lapchen. So now I show you as for, well, in order to speak about that, of course, I also have to be initiated into the cemetery practice of church, and I was lucky to receive in a very small circle of only 5 participants, including the guru from His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche personally, this initiation of Tremba Nagmo, and then afterwards he sent me to Chadra Rinpoche. You saw his picture from Jan Baker's presentation, to study and to learn. So first he sent me to a small nunnery to learn, the skill to handle the drum and the bell. Afterwards I had to come back, he examined me, then I had to learn the text by heart, another examination, and then when I sort of passed that, then he took me by his own hand in the evening into the jungle where next to where his chetan was in Churibungalow, and selected a site, and he told me, never use any text, never use any torch or light, it must be in the dark, and now you sit down and do it. So in this way I was taught to practice church not in a very pleasant environment in a temple hall or something where you see now the nuns beautifully singing melodiously and nicely in harmony or beating the drum. So my way of practicing church is rather a wild way and certainly not beautiful to hear. So I show you now some pictures. This is, I frequented some, wherever I had the occasion in my journeys to Tibet, also the charnel grounds, the tutu there. This is the famous charnel ground called Tencha of Tigungtil, where I had, where the dismembering, that is a whole mandala, Vajrayogini mandala, where the dead bodies are placed, and they are dismembered by the head, who is a Togden, not a Togden as in Zarathustra, but a Togden, a yogi who is doing the ceremony. So it's rather sophisticated the way they do it there. And here you see how they work on it. And I sort of wanted also to participate, and although I'm not really skillful to handle the knife, but I was able to crush the bones with stones, and that was hard enough because the stones are really heavy. So this was, it's very early in the morning when that takes place, and of course in the Tibetan tradition they don't dismember or bury, whatever you want to say, or burn the bodies immediately, but often after a long time, and then they are really sort of smelly, and one needs to have a stomach for that. So you cannot do such sort of practice without the guru, of course. And my guru is the 16th Gyalpa Karmapa, who always encouraged, not only encouraged me, he made me, he sent me actually to the cremation grounds. So he said, go out of this, you are not a monastic, go out and you go to the cremation ground. And then he said, you challenge the sadhus there. I had no idea what he meant. But anyway, it happened that in 74, now I can say it in nearly 50 years now that I am in this line. So he sent me to this place where I discovered with his guidance this place in rural Bengal. It's a Shakti Peeth, and there he said, I will meet the sadhu and the sadhuni, a yogi and the yogini, and there are his disciples from a previous life, from their previous lives. So I should go and be with them. So there are Gauri yogis. This is there's this Kalababa, with whom I stayed, and then there is his consort, the Sadhuma. And now that of course, when you are in India, you always get some stupid questions. Are you married? Where are you from? And this and that. So in order to avoid that, I decided in the first 8 years of frequenting this particular cremation ground that I did not speak at all. But I showed pictures and so on, and meaning to challenge the sadhus, what I did not know what it meant, but it happened that at one occasion, when I refused to take the blessing of a blood sacrifice, sort of indicating this is not in our Buddhist tradition, immediately they gave it up. Never again in our cremation ground ashram, in that little one, any blood sacrifice took place, and in order to commemorate that, we have this picture. They are holding a picture of Mahakala and I think the Karmapa and Galu Rinpoche. So Galu Rinpoche also, with whom I studied many years, and Chatra Rinpoche and the Karmapa, they continuously over the years encouraged me and supported me in this way of practicing there. So after some time, Galu Baba passed away. Then I was alone with the Sadhuma. We have hot springs there. The one hot spring goes directly through our cremation ground ashram, which is very simple. So I always call it a 5-star hotel. I mean, I have the hot springs and I have no television but the fires of the cremation ground. I did over the decades most of my retreats, meditation retreats there, always in the open, under a tree, usually under a tree. This is our ashram, very humble, you see. First it was just a hut, then a little better, now it's like that. This is the Mahasamadhi, Sanuma also passed away. This is her Samadhi, this is that Mahasamadhi of the Kalu Baba, and so on. That Kalu Baba was quite a magician. So for instance, he took up immediately the practice of Mahakala, and he was never any time doing any ritual. He was just always gazing at the sky. But one thing he did, he had a Kapala, a skull, and then in the evening he put some alcohol in it, then he put the picture of our 6-armed Mahakala on it, then he offered it, and then the alcohol was gone. Then he said, oh, he was eating the whole lot. So now I'm holding this skull. I try many times, but now I have to finish it myself. So this is just short the ground, and already these are the fires. You see the. Now I want to come to the point actually why one goes to the cremation ground. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's much easier to sit in a beautiful temple hall and meditate at Jain Museum or what. But sort of I always, as I was asked by my guru, the Karmapa, and my other masters, so this is really my line. So the thing is that what we have heard before when Kalu Rinpoche spoke, when I approached in my younger days, of course, I took a bus or I walked or whatever, and it immediately cuts off this namtok, these discursive thoughts. Automatically they are stopped somehow. That's a great advantage. And then you have to, of course, there are snakes, there are scorpions, there are all sorts of things, there are the ghosts, And so you have this challenge to overcome that. Of course, all attachments are easily dissolved because, watching the bodies burn, then you sort of overcome all your worldly thoughts. Now, at one point, I came to Umtek and the Karmapa asked me, sort of looking at me and saying, do you have no fear? And then I thought I'm extremely clever to say, I have no fear except I fear the demon of my ego. I thought this is a great answer. Then he looked at me and said, well, let's see. It happened then he sent me to the Trumtek cremation, charnel ground. What happened afterwards is that I completely misunderstood. And in the following, I felt very ill, and deadly ill. And he said, great, this is a purification. Good. He sent me his pills and so on. But then afterwards, it happened also that my mother passed away and all sort of dark times came up. And when I finally recovered and came back to him, he said, no, now you are forbidden for 2 years, you're not allowed to go to the tutor. So what did I do? I went to Bodh Gaya, sat under the tree there, and so anyway, after some time again was allowed to frequent the burning ground. So you see, when you deal with this, it doesn't mean when you don't see the ghosts or what, you have the dead spirits, they are there. But it's a question how to deal with them, you know. And a wonderful thing, which is a great inspiration for me to meditate there is, you know, these suffering spirits and demons and dead spirits and whatnot. Even the humans, the Sadhguru always said the humans are the worst demons. The actual demons are much better and easier to deal with. But what we really can feed on, and what is important also for, you know, for my practice is, they feed on samadhi, right? So if you are in proper meditation, in proper, what I call samadhi, they feed on that. So you can, this is the best thing what you can offer to them. So this is extremely important to be in that state. And then another thing is why I like to be in such places, not only on this one, also there are lots of other places I frequented, also in Bihar, some of the famous places with Guru Rinpoche, also some of the 8 great tutor of Padmasambhava. The most important is that you cannot cheat yourself, you know. That is the actual thing, because you know, you may give the air to be a great practitioner or what, but it doesn't work like that at the cremation ground, because if you fall out of your awareness, you know, your continuous awareness, then they come, whether they come in form of snakes or what not, or the demons catch you. So this is important, and this is a great inspiration that you cannot cheat yourself. This is just naked. You're naked there, and you're confronted just your real nature, actually. So it's for me a great place. Now, what I want to do now in my late stage of my life is, my great wish is to build a stupa, because it's, after all, I want to revive in this rural Bengal area the ancient Buddhist Tantric tradition, and for that I want to build a stupa. That place is even mentioned in the Puranas already, so it's really ancient, and it certainly has also Buddhist infiltrations. So I hope with the help of Bhutanese lamas who would come and build with me there in the next near future a stupa. Thank you.
Thank you so much.